Hello, hello from wherever you are. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. You are watching this. It's 12 midday here in England, and happy Friday. Welcome to my couch. Welcome to Self Love Friday. Thank you for being here. Just really, I have had a question about the difference between self love and being self absorbed or self centered. And so I've decided to cover in a little bit more about what is self-love, what does it look like, how does it behave, how do we get there, why is it okay? I'm going to start with, let me just open that, definition of self-love according to Wikipedia. We all love to go online and look things up, don't we? So on Wikipedia it says self-love, defined as love of self or regard for one's own happiness or advantage. It goes on to say that self-love has both been conceptualized as a basic human necessity, which is what I believe, and also as a moral flaw, akin to vanity and selfishness, synonymous with conceitedness, ego, etc. So I would like to cover some of those things today. Hello, Olga. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here. I love the fact that you're here every week with me. So to speak to that Wikipedia thing that says that self-love has been defined as a basic human necessity as well as a moral flaw, I'd like to look at that a bit because in that same definition, under moral flaw is the use of the word selfish. I like to differentiate between self-absorbed or self-centered and selfish. Is self-love selfish? Yes, it is. Self-love is about putting oneself first. Self-love is about knowing yourself. It's about caring for yourself. And it's about putting yourself first. Why do we need to do this? Well, I'm going to ask you a question. Do you feel loved? Have you ever felt truly loved? Well, let's look at that a bit more, shall we? I feel loved. I feel deeply loved. And the main reason for this is not all the beautiful souls in my life who do love me, but myself. I have practiced self-love for so long, and I've been so dedicated to this practice that I'm finally in a place in my life where I feel deeply loved every day. I wake up and feel loved. It's the first thing I feel every morning. Think about when you do feel loved. If it's in a relationship with somebody else, how does that look? How does it feel? For me, when I see someone who feels loved, because they are loved, they're calm. They have the sense of satisfaction. There's no neediness about them. They're calm and satisfied. They are sitting in their own center. They seem centered in that space. There's that feeling of being known. So there is no frenetic energy, calm, centered sense of confidence because they're known, they're loved, they're accepted. There is the ability to listen and the ability to fully show up because when you're loved, you're accepted. And when you're accepted, it's safe to be vulnerable. It's safe to show yourself fully. It's safe to show up. That is an absolutely irreplaceable feeling. On the other hand, think of when you have felt unloved. What goes with that? What goes with that is a sense of longing or neediness, for want of a better word, a sense of a bit of frenetic energy, sort of going from one thing to the next, trying to find that missing piece. What could it be? The feeling of loneliness, or I would say loneliness, because feeling unknown, like you might be surrounded by people, but do any of them really know you and value you? So that's really what goes with being unloved. And as a result, there is an inability to truly listen. That person who feels unloved will be speaking all the time, possibly over other people. They will be running, as I said, from one thing, trying to find things, and they will not feel safe to be completely themselves. The person who feels unloved might not even know who they really are. There's no judgment in that. We've all been there. I've been there. As I've said before on other videos here, I spent many years of my life being a complete chameleon, trying everything out, trying different things, trying to figure it all out. And I kept coming back to the fact that I had to do this for me and I had to love myself. So is self-love? Yes, it is. Self-love is very selfish. What it isn't is self-absorbed. The self-love journey, there were so many steps to get there. Hello, JJ UK, welcome and thank you for joining. Yes, very important. Do this for yourself. Absolutely. So I would like to define self-absorbed behavior as I've seen it. And this is why I've linked loved and unloved. Self-absorbed people will generally tend to do a lot of talking. You might talk to them about something that's very close to your heart. You might need to share in a vulnerable space. A self-absorbed person will not be able to show up fully. They will keep bringing it back to themselves. They will make it about themselves very often. And as I said earlier, no judgment, we've all been there. That is a very different place from self-love. A self-loving person, a person who feels loved because they practice self-love every day, would, if they were not in a space for that vulnerable conversation with you, be able to say that, I'm really, really sorry that you need me right now. I am not able to be here for you right now. Could we talk about this later? Because they're able to put down their boundaries, because they love themselves enough to get to know themselves. Think of when you fall in love with someone. What do? You want to know everything about that person. That same thing should apply to yourself first. How well do you know yourself? How well do you know your triggers and your boundaries? And when you are able to show up and when you're not? And when you are vulnerable and needing a little bit more of something different from the people around you, or just from life in general, or from your space, how much energy have you put into that? The other thing is basic self-care. Again, bring back to, and self-care and self-love really dovetail together, because if you're practicing self-love early on in the stages and you haven't been doing it for a long time, a very good way to activate self-love is basic self-care. So getting into a routine that supports your well-being on very many levels is really, really helpful, because what will happen over time is you will feel loved. So you might not know where to start with self-love. You might be like, how does this all work? You can start with self-care. Basic self-care pave the way to self-love. And in the end, it actually becomes a sign of self-love, because the basic self-care just becomes so natural that you can't get away from it. You can't, once you love yourself, you can't get away from that self-care practice because it's just so natural. But if you're struggling to start on the self-care path, self-love path, start with basic self-care. Little things like, I've mentioned before, getting up every morning and making myself a glass of hot water with lemon juice is a sign that I love myself. I might not feel it in that moment. Everybody wakes up with a bad day. So I might wake up having had a bad dream, having not slept, having deadlines looming, and I might feel a bit wonky, a bit out of sync. And I then go into my self-care practice and remind myself that I am loved. I am worth it. It is worthwhile. That's not self-absorbed. That's not self-absorbed at all. And yes, I might have a house full of people that love me and whom I love. And some might say, well, why don't you make your husband coffee first? Well, because his coffee won't be filled with love unless I've taken care of me first. So I do make my lemon water first. It is what it is. Self-care is a a symptom of self-love. And when you're struggling to find self-love, self-care. The self-absorbed person might make the cup of coffee for their husband and then might deliver it with a passive-aggressive comment to go with that. Nobody wants that in the morning. That is definite sign of unloved. Self-absorbed behavior is someone who's not feeling very loved. Self-absorbed is also looking for love from the external all the time. So that is what feeds self-absorption, because you're not giving it to me the way I want, and you're not giving it to me the way I want, and you're not, and I'm still feeling this gap. I then become self-absorbed in that every time you talk to me, it becomes about me. You might be talking to me about your pain and your challenge and your difficulty, but I'll turn it into something about me because I'm feeling needy. I need love. I need attention. Let's make your story about me. There's a very big difference. The person who feels loved and is practicing self-love will be able to show up in that conversation and park their own stuff. I know that I have things that I would love to chat about. So let's say somebody comes to me and they have something important, they might be vulnerable, they want to chat about it. I've been practicing self-love long enough to know that if I say yes to that conversation, I can show up fully. I am safe. Why? Because I love me. Therefore, I can be there for that person. Not just listening and saying, but actually engaging, actually listening, actually connecting, and not turning it into something about me. I might use examples that I've experienced when we're chatting, but I'm not turning it into something that's about me. So these are signs. The other thing is putting yourself first. So again, yes, self-love is selfish. Putting yourself first when it comes to time. So my time is my most precious asset. I have so much that I want to achieve. I want to live in joy. And therefore, what is my most precious asset? My time. My time and my energy. They do go hand in hand. So again, it's giving time to me first. Giving time to things that are important to me first. Giving to self-care first. Another way of expressing that is, as I said up front, how well do you know yourself? When you fall in love with someone and you really get to know them. Give time to getting to know yourself. Spend time with yourself. Sometimes our emotions and our thoughts can be really scary and can seem so dark. And we will do anything to keep from them. So we keep busy and doing stuff. I must work. I must phone so-and-so. I must always be available. If my brother needs me, I must answer the phone. If my daughter calls me, I must be available for her, whatever she needs. That is not self-love. Self-love is me first. Me first. So I have to spend time knowing myself so that I can know my limitations, my triggers, the things that feed my soul and allow me to show up, so that I can know when I show up that I am safe. So for me, that comes back to self-care again, and something I've spoken about so many times is giving yourself time, giving yourself a routine. I give myself time every single day to get to know myself. And you might think, oh, how well can you know yourself? But think about it. How much do we change? How much happens every single day of our lives that shift us, that we feel something that we haven't felt for a long time, and we think, oh, where did that come from? If we don't stop to think about that question, where did that come from? We won't know ourselves any better than we did 10 years ago. How then will we grow into the best version of ourselves? How will we be able to truly love if we're not truly loving ourselves? So take time, give time to yourself, to your self-love practice, to your basic self-care, and you will be able to then, surprisingly, have more time for all those things that seem so important to you, like loving other people and being there for them, like following your passion, or just showing up fully in your job and being able to be there and be present and do the job that you're paid for. If you give yourself the time that you deserve, you will be able to give the time to other people. So that is selfish self-love, yes. Self-absorbed, self-absorbed is different. Self-absorbed might spend hours and hours thinking about, do I look okay? How does my hair suit me today? That's a poor example for me, isn't it? Self-absorbed is I'm so busy worrying about what everyone thinks about what my bum looks like in these trousers that I'm not listening to the conversation. Self-absorbed thinks I deserve more money than this when I'm actually in a commission job and people are doing well. Yes, there are always going to be obstacles. There are always going to be conditions that we don't like. Self-absorbed is blaming the conditions, moaning about the conditions, and thinking me in that very self-absorbed, very self-explanatory way, where it's just all about me and it's only my perspective. Self-love looks very different. Self-love can see the perspective of the situation. Self-love can see my role in the situation. If the situation is going my way, what is my role in that? How can I shift to shift the situation? How can I shift to make my circumstances work better for me? So self-love and self-absorbed look very different. Self-absorbed goes hand in hand with blame. Blame is a biggie, which I'd actually like to dedicate a whole session to one of these days. We come out of, I'm not sure historically where it started or if it's basic human nature. It doesn't seem basic to me. However, I do see myself doing it and I see everyone around me doing it. It's as if when something goes wrong, we don't want to say, I did that. We grow to a place where we can do that. I have grown to a place where I can say, that was me. Or that was us collectively. Oops, look at all of us creating havoc. But it seems like most people want to blame something straight away. You kick your toe, you blame the thing that you kicked. It sounds crazy when you say it like that, but that's what we do. When in fact, you kicked your toe. So I think I've used that example before. But in bigger things, self-absorbed people are blaming. They're looking outside always. They're looking outside for their love. They're looking outside for their affirmation. They're looking outside to blame when things aren't going their way. Self-loved is all happening inside. It's all here. And it's this beautiful journey of actively loving this being, this self, getting to know this person, and not having to blame anything or anyone. Circumstances are just circumstances. And the more self-love we practice, the more we create our own reality. Bottom line, as you practice self-love, shift your mindset. That is the fact. Love yourself and your thinking will shift. Because let's get back to, do you feel loved? When you feel loved, what do you feel? When I feel loved, I feel calm. I feel satisfied. I feel known. I feel safe. I feel held. I feel okay to be vulnerable. And I feel 100% okay to show up however I'm feeling in the moment because of the safety of being loved. And that's what self-love does. That's the gift that self-love is. Every day, creating that thing. So challenge yourself today. Are you living from a place of self-love? Or have you been a bit more self-absorbed? And I'll tell you right now, self-absorbed is right in there. I have been practicing self-love for very many years, and I still catch myself going through periods where something has triggered me and I haven't noticed, and I've slipped into self-absorbed. That is natural. There is no judgment here. There is only a quest for awareness. So when I challenge you, it's not from a place of, I've got it all right. I caught myself very recently being in a space where I was coming across needy. I had to stop and say, what is going on? What is going on? How have I gone into this space? Well, my self-love needed a little bit more attention. My time commitment to myself needed a little bit more attention. Not only that, in that time, how was I using that time? Was I being completely honest with myself? It ended up coming down to that. There was something that I just didn't really want to look at. And so I found myself playing out in relationships, a little bit here, a little bit there, over time, close relationships, my mom, my husband, my daughter. There were these little incidences that came up, and I had to come to a point of saying, stop now, hold on, and use my time well and answer the tough questions for myself. And I got a great answer. Tough questions can seem so scary, but they bring great answers. And just like love, when you love somebody, sometimes their truth can be really scary. But when you love them, think about your response. You love that person. You want what's best for them. So they tell you something that could seem scary to you and to them. But because of your love for them, you accept it. You accept them. You accept the truth of their truth. Self-love is doing it for yourself. You won't need to be self-absorbed. You won't need to be needy, feeling scared to show up, feeling vulnerable, feeling like you don't get enough from anyone or any situation. True self-love will bring you that calm, centered feeling of being safe, being loved, being held, and being able to show up. And as a result, really be there for yourself, for everything in your life, and for everybody in your life. You will be able to be fully present in all of your relationships. So I encourage you to challenge yourself, and check yourself on a regular basis. And whatever you do, put yourself first, be selfish, love yourself. Thank you so much for being here today. I truly love you all and appreciate you being here. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you sharing your time with me. And I do look forward to next week. If there is anything that you would like me to talk about, or you have any questions that you'd like me to cover, please let me know. In the meantime, lots of love. Have a beautiful weekend and a lovely week next week. Ciao for now. Mwah.